Hey everybody, IMTS is in a couple of days. Actually, technically it started today, but I'm not going until Wednesday. I will be heading up to a hotel halfway between IMTS and some family friends. On tomorrow evening, we'll be staying the night there, and then on Wednesday will be my first day at IMTS. But before I can do that, I've got some stuff I need to take care of at the shop. I'm working at my old day job on location tomorrow, and then leaving immediately after that. So that means today is my last day in the shop until like Sunday. And I've got a lot of stuff to do to get ready. First and foremost, I have some packing and shipping to do, but I also need to machine a pry bar, which wouldn't normally be a problem, except I got rid of my 0-point system when I switched fixtures. So I need to set that job up again. This time, since I'm just doing one pry bar, I'm gonna do it in a vise instead of doing it in my fancy fixture. But that does involve just a few minor G-code changes. So that code's posted and ready to go. I just need to get it set up in the machine. Realistically, I don't think I'm ever gonna go back to my fixture. It's not like I sell dozens of these every day where I need like a dedicated, high productivity fixture. It was great for the Kickstarter when I sold like 70 of them. But for, I sell maybe 2 of these a month. Like they're not a high moving item, mostly because they're complicated and hard to sell. Like it's hard to explain the idea behind the pry bar, so they're hard to sell on Etsy. So from now on, I'm just gonna do them all in a vise anyway. All right, pry bar's running and I need to go eat dinner. Pry bar's done. It's looking better in some ways, but has some issues. I think my finishes are actually better thanks to my coolant before I was running these on air blast. But I had some weird issues where it was mismeasuring the top height of this with the probe. And I think it's because I need to recalibrate my probe ever since changing my tool setter. So since I had to change all my tool offsets, I think I need to change my probe offset to match. But I can clean this up with just a little bit of handwork. Okay, a couple minutes with a belt grinder and a Dremel and a file, and it's as good as new. This one was just made with a little love. Now, I prefer they're made with a cold emotionless robot, but when that screws up, they're made with love. All right, that pry bar's in the tumbler. I'll get that in the mail tomorrow, and then head to IMTS. So, that little fade to black you just saw there? That was all of my IMTS footage. I ended up not recording a single piece of video either on this camera or on my phone, not even any Instagram stories throughout the whole of IMTS. I pretty much did the whole thing offline. IMTS, the road to IMTS for me was a little bit of an ordeal. Let's talk about what happened here. So first of all, we were gonna leave Tuesday evening so that we could get to our Airbnb, which was about 45 minutes out of Chicago, and get to bed, have an early start tomorrow morning. I say we because my whole family went with me. We have some family friends that were about 45 minutes away for our Airbnb. We specifically chose that one because it was in the middle. So Tuesday evening, started getting everything packed up, and I turned on my car to go to the gas station to get it gassed up and ready to go. And it just smelled like death. It smelled awful in there. It smelled like something had crawled up in it and died. And sure enough, a mouse crawled up in our car and died. The car probably got left open for a couple minutes, or it potentially hitched a ride on a bird cage that we had in there earlier a couple days ago. And then it crawled into our air conditioner and got stuck on the in-cabin filter, which is what distributes air throughout the entire car. It did not smell good. It was not, I don't want to say not livable because we could have dealt with it, but it was not something you wanted to be in there for 3 hours later that day. So I then spent, it took me about an hour, hour and a half to find said mousey. Obviously at the beginning, I did not know he was in the air conditioner unit. But eventually I started watching some YouTube videos about how to get to the various parts of the air system on our car, and I pulled out the air filter and Mr. Dead Mousey was sitting there looking at me. I vacuumed Mr. Mousey out and went and I bought a new air filter. But while I was out, I just started feeling terrible. I started getting kind of lightheaded and a little bit dizzy, and my stomach was grumbling on me. I don't know, I was very happy to get home, and I just went home and I went to bed. At this point, it was probably 6 o'clock in the evening, And like that was it for me for the day. Like I had a fever, I had chills. Later, my temperature read like 103. I just felt terrible. You know, I never actually threw up, but I had a bowl beside my bed just in case. And like it really knocked me down for like 12 hours. Next morning, got up, I was fine. Like I think I had a little bit of a headache the next morning, probably because I didn't drink water for that previous 12-hour period. But next day, fine, not a problem. We packed up the kids. I rode in the car. My wife drove us up to Chicago, got to the Airbnb. At this point, I was still feeling fine. Not great, but fine. And then went to IMTS. And I don't know, I could tell that I was maybe still a little bit fevery. I felt warm. And maybe shouldn't have put myself around a whole bunch of people. But I don't know, I wasn't feeling that bad. I got there just in time for the Insta Machinist meetup at the Kern booth, and that was really cool. I got to meet a lot of people that I've only known by Instagram tag or on Discord, so I got to see a lot of those people in person. Man, I'm not going to even try to list all of the people because I would forget 3/4 of them just because there was so many. But then after that, me, Foot Pedal Jones, and Fidget Things, they're all on Instagram, you can look them up, went around and talked to a couple booths. We went and saw the new Pocket NC machine, we went and saw the new Penta Machine Co. 5-axis CNC, formerly known as Pocket NC. They have rebranded. And that machine was running my part at IMTS, and they actually gave me a aluminum version of one of my carabiners that they machined there. So that was super cool. Yes, I know Penta Machine Co. was machining my carabiners. They licensed those rights from me. They didn't just steal my design, don't worry. After that, the three of us did a little bit of walking around. We looked at Willmans. We looked at the level machines. Those are pretty cool, kind of in the same class as the new Pocket NC machine. They have a small, like refrigerator-sized mill turn that's actually pretty interesting. And then things closed up for the day. I got there at 3, the building closed at 6, so I didn't have a whole lot of time. The next day, I was actually working remotely for my day job from the Airbnb, and that was boring, but fine. It was kind of annoying not being at IMTS, but like I had originally planned on this. It gave, my wife and kids more time to explore Chicago and, didn't sacrifice any income on my end, so that was fine. And then on Friday, I hope I said those days right. Thursday, I worked from home. Friday, I went back to IMTS, and that is when I spent the whole day there, and it was awesome. A couple hours in, I ran into my buddies Sean and James at Cerven Solutions, and we walked around for a little bit looking at water jets and robotics. And then later, I met back up with Denzel. I briefly got to meet him in person for the first time at the Insta Machinist meetup, but I kind of got pulled away from him really fast, and I felt guilty for not talking to him more. And so I asked to meet back up with him, and we walked around for a couple hours looking at stuff, mostly the finishing section of the trade show. It was great being able to spend more time with him and talk to him more. He's in Canada, so like I'm not going to be able to see him in person, basically ever except for IMTS. And then after that, I was on my own for the rest of the show. I bought a $20 sandwich that was questionable, but I just had a blast looking around at everything. It probably, a lot of people say that you need the 4 full days at the show. I was starting to see the same things at the end, though I did completely ignore a quarter of the show. I didn't even go to one of the buildings. I just stayed in 3 of them. My goal for the show was to figure out how to make carabiners better, both making them of a higher quality, but also making them faster, cheaper, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I focused a lot of my time on work holding. I went to the Mighty Byte booth and got some advice from some of the engineers at Mighty Byte. I talked to a couple other companies that had their own work holding stuff. I went to Shunk because the new Pocket NC machine has a Shunk fixture on it, and I wanted to kind of learn about their 0-point system that the Pocket NC is going to come with. Penta Machine Co. I need to call it the right name. And I also looked a lot at different finishing technologies. I looked at vapor hones and different types of tumblers. What I learned basically is that I need a high energy tumbler for the type of parts that I'm doing, but those are expensive. The one that I really liked, I believe it was Bel Air or Bell Finishing, Bell something. They had a unit that was pretty compact. It came on a cart. It was probably 3 inches by 3 inches, 3 feet by 2 foot by, I don't know, chest high or so. And most of it was cart. There was a water tank underneath, and it had a like centrifugal tumbler bowl thingy on the top, and a station where it would dump out and you could sort out parts for media. It was really slick. It was a really aggressive machine, so it would tumble my parts very fast, but it was also $15,000, and I'm not at a point where I want to spend $15,000 on a tumbler right now. There was also a whole range of other companies that had other machines ranging from $1,500 to about $4,000 for a small tumbler. There was probably, 5 companies that I talked to that had something in that range. But the biggest thing I learned was that the first thing I need to try is changing medias. And I've kind of known this. I've done the thing where it's like, well, this has always worked for me, and it may not be the best for everything, but it works. I also spent a while talking to Kyocera. They make tooling, and actually they have a sister company whose name I've already forgotten. But I recently found out that I have a distributor like really close to my house that carries Kyocera, and their sister company, presumably, whatever that company was called. So I got some tooling recommendations from them. They said they're going to send me some samples. We'll see if they actually do, because I'm a small company and I don't know, the salesperson was being nice, but we'll see if they actually follow through on that. But then the magic moment from all of IMTS happened there, or what I think is going to be. I haven't actually tested what I'm about to tell you, but I was showing the Kyocera rep my carabiner, and we were talking about fixturing and like how that was really the cause of all my problems. And he was like, hey, there's these people called Blue Photon. Go talk to them. They have something unique. And like the show was about to close. I had just a couple minutes left, and I went and I found these people, and their fixturing system blew my mind. They basically found a way to take the super glue method and make it work in a production setting, which is exactly what I need on these carabiners. The way they were doing that is with a UV activated glue that was heat meltable, and I think maybe water soluble, now that I think about it. So the way their system worked is they had these little, I don't know what you would call them, but little tubes that had threads on the outside, kind of like a set screw, but with a piece of glass inside them that you would put into your fixture, and they had a precision ground surface on the top, and you could snap a UV LED to the bottom of them. They had a whole system for this where they had like magnets that, the UV LED would magnet to. So you would put these little windows in your parts with access to the back to be able to, get the UV LEDs on. And you would put just a dab of their glue on the little precision ground surface. You would set your part in, you'd hook up the LEDs, turn on the LEDs, and within like a minute, that glue would cure and hold your part in place. And it was like epoxy, like it would hold your part. It was significant. It was not just like a dab of hot glue. It was a lot more rigid than that. And then you go and you machine your part, and then you use heat. They had a steam gun, but they said you could also use a hot air gun or put it in like a powder coating oven, and your part comes right out, and the glue just kind of melts away off of your fixture and off your part. It doesn't leave any marks, nothing. And it's just such a beautiful system. It is unfortunately also a $10,000 system, and I don't want to spend that. So I'm going to steal their idea and DIY it. I'm hoping that it works. My biggest problem, and I guess I could just buy it from them, but my biggest problem is finding a similar glue to what they have. I ordered some UV cure wax, like for 3D printing, lost wax, casting kind of stuff, and I'm hoping that'll work. But I was going to go to super glue fixturing for my carabiners, but I was just worried about how slow it would be, especially in removing the part after it's machined, and then also cleaning the fixture to make sure the next part lays in there flat. And this could solve those problems. So I ordered a bunch of UV LEDs, I ordered a bunch of various UV curing products, and I think we could make this work. I don't think I'll need their light tube to be able to cure things from the back. I think I can just put dobs on the side. But I'm really hoping I found my my work holding solution for these carabiners. I'll be doing some tests for you guys, don't worry. After that company blew my mind with their product, I left. The show was over. It closed, and I went back to my Airbnb and hung out with my kids. And then we spent Saturday just family vacationing. We went to one of the lakes up there and on the beach and played on the beach for a little while. So that was a pretty good ending to a trip that started off pretty chaotically. And I think that's going to conclude this video that turned into a podcast because I didn't record anything. Thank you guys for watching. The Kickstarter is still live and doing fantastic right now. I'll make a different video talking about that. I'll see you next time.